You sat there in your chair, your fingers absent-mindedly tapping on your iPad, waiting for Jungkook to finish his call. He'd been talking to one of the collaborators for the past 5 minutes, and you were getting restless. You glanced up at him, watching his focused expression as he spoke with calm professionalism. It was always like this when he was at work, completely in control. But you knew better. You could feel the air shift whenever you were around him. You'd noticed it the first time you met, and it only grew stronger with time. As soon as he ended the call, you straightened up, eyes still locked on him. Jungkook, please fit a 45:40 meeting after lunch break. Yin, all right, sir. He nodded, then buried himself back into his laptop. But you were finished with your work? There was nothing left to do except wait, and you weren't about to leave yet. You just sat there, observing him in the way only you knew how. Your eyes traced every detail of his posture, the way his lips pressed together in concentration, the faint line of his jaw. He didn't notice at first, but then, when the silence stretched longer than usual, he looked up again. This time, you didn't look away. His gaze met yours, and you saw the flicker of something in his eyes, something only the two of you shared. His breath caught in his chest. He tried to look away, but his eyes lingered a little too long, betraying him. Jungkook, oh, well, you can go work now. Yin, I'm done with everything. You spoke softly, not breaking eye contact. He hesitated, blinking rapidly as if trying to shake off the effect you had on him. Jungkook was a man of control, of discipline, but with you, he couldn't seem to hold it together. His confidence trembled, and you could see it. You knew it drove him crazy, this connection you both shared, the way you made him feel flustered and out of control. Jungkook, then have your lunch. You gave a casual shrug, resting your chin in your hand as you leaned forward on his desk. Yin, I don't like eating without you. His eyebrows shot up, surprised by your words, but he quickly dropped his gaze. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat as you continued to gaze him intensely, but you didn't let up. Jungkook, don't stare at me like that. Yin, like what? You teased, a smile playing at the corner of your lips. He took a deep breath, feeling his confidence slipping away, just like every other time. With you, he was never sure of himself. Jungkook, like he couldn't form words and just accepted his defeat. Never mind. You watched him carefully, noting the way his lips twitched. It was a game now, and you had all the power. Yin, I like to use my free time to do what I want, you said, a small, challenging grin curling on your lips. He knew exactly what you meant, but instead of responding, he focused back on his laptop, knowing better than to try and fight you. He let you stare at him, feeling a strange flutter in his chest as he caught himself enjoying it, even though he tried not to show it. You'd been working together for over a year now. You knew he had feelings for you. He'd confessed to his mother once, thinking no one was listening. But you'd heard it all from outside his office door. Ever since, you'd been pushing his buttons, getting him to admit what he truly felt for you. But he was shy, introverted, and it only made you more determined. You saw how he looked at you when he thought you weren't paying attention, shyly, like he was unsure of himself. It was adorable, really, but you needed him to act on it. You needed him to confess. He might not be good at romance, but you understood that. He just needed a little nudge. The afternoon rolled in, and you were now focused on preparing for the next meeting, scheduled right in the middle of your hectic day. Just as you finished organizing the papers, there was a knock on the door. You and Jungkook both looked up, and the manager stepped inside, bowing slightly. Manager, the team from Modern Company is here for the meeting in the conference room, Mr. Jeon. Jungkook nodded, his face expressionless. Jungkook, give us 5 minutes. It was there you saw her, a young woman who seemed about your age. She was dressed in a flashy outfit that seemed more suited for a night out than a business meeting. The moment she saw Jungkook, her smile widened, and it was clear she had no interest in anyone else in the room. Her eyes stayed locked on him as she made her way toward him, walking with purpose. She ignored everyone else, not even bothering to acknowledge you as she extended her hand to jungkook. Ms. Emily. Hello, Mr. Jeon. It's such a pleasure to meet you in person. Jungkook's face remained calm and neutral as he nodded and extended his hand, but his touch was quickly withdrawn as soon as he shook her hand. Jungkook, nice to meet you too, Miss Emily. This is my secretary, and this is my manager. You gave a polite nod, but she didn't acknowledge you. Her eyes remained fixed on Jungkook. Her smile was flirtatious, and it made your blood boil. She didn't even bother to shake your hand. Jungkook noticed and acted, trying to get away with the awkward situation. Jungkook, Let's get started then. Miss Emily, yes please, I've been waiting for you. Her voice dripped with a hint of flirtation that made your stomach turn. You could tell by the way her eyes never left Jungkook's body that she wasn't interested in the business at hand. She was interested in him. Her attention was all on him. The way her eyes lingered on his chest, you felt a pang of jealousy shoot through you, but you kept it hidden. Jungkook was yours, and no matter how much she flirted or tried, she wouldn't be able to take him away from you. You rolled your eyes and sank into your chair, trying to focus. Jungkook began speaking, his voice authoritative and clear, as he laid out the main topics of the meeting. You could see Emily was barely paying attention to the presentation. Her eyes kept drifting back to Jungkook, undressing him with her gaze. The meeting had been going smoothly, and as Jungkook wrapped up his part, he nodded at you, signaling it was your turn. You stood up, your posture straight, commanding the attention of the entire room as you began to speak. Your words were measured, precise, making it clear that you knew exactly what you were talking about. You maintained eye contact with the group, your gaze unwavering, as if challenging anyone to doubt you. The team members shifted in their seats as you spoke, listening carefully, absorbing the details of the project. When you finished, the room fell silent for a moment as you took your seat. The other team members stood up, eager to explain what they thought they'd contribute to the project. Jungkook, now seated beside you, couldn't help but steal a glance in your direction as you settled into your seat. As the others continued discussing, you leaned in closer to him, casually resting your hand on his bicep. The warmth of your touch immediately sent a small jolt through him. Yin, how did I do? You asked, your voice playful, almost teasing. Your fingers gently pressed into his muscle as you spoke. Jungkook, caught off guard, blinked for a moment, then smiled, his eyes softening with admiration. Jungkook, just like always, he said, his tone full of admiration. With confidence, precision, you own the room, Yin. His words were genuine, a subtle praise. He couldn't hold back. He noticed the way you commanded attention with ease, your poise, and how effortlessly you took charge. It was hard not to be in awe of you. His gaze flickered briefly to your hand resting on his bicep, and despite himself, he felt a wave of warmth spread through him. You knew how to get under his skin in the most subtle ways, but he didn't mind. His gaze shifted quickly back to the speaker, trying to focus on what was being said, but the feeling of your touch lingered, distracting him. You, on the other hand, were fully aware of the woman sitting across from you, Miss Emily. Her eyes were locked on your hand, studying the way it rested on Jungkook's shoulder, and you could practically feel the irritation radiating off her. She was trying to hide it, but you didn't remove your hand from his shoulder. Instead, you let your fingers rub slowly against the hard muscle of his bicep, just enough to remind her that Jungkook is yours. You let your gaze meet hers. It wasn't subtle, it was challenging. Emily blinked, breaking eye contact quickly, but you didn't look away, making you smirk. After a few more minutes, a small break was called, giving everyone a chance to stretch and gather their thoughts. You, as always, took the opportunity and got up, making your way towards Emily's secretary to finalize some of the paperwork and contracts as part of your job. Your pen moved swiftly across the documents, but you couldn't ignore the sounds around you. You glanced up when you noticed Emily walking toward Jungkook. She was talking to him with that same flirtatious smile plastered on her face. Your gaze flickered to his reaction, but he seemed calm, even smiling back at her. Your heart skipped a beat, and your grip on the pen tightened. Your grip on the pen tightened as Emily's placed her fingers gently on his bicep, the very same place your hand had been only moments ago. Your breath caught in your throat. How dare she? Your anger wasn't entirely directed at her. It was at Jungkook, the way he let her touch him. You watched as Jungkook shifted in his seat, slightly leaning away from her touch. But Emily wasn't backing down. She leaned in closer, her body language too forward for your liking, as if daring him to make a move. Your fingers dug into the pen, your nails leaving slight scratches in the surface. You couldn't watch this anymore. You had to do something. Yin, let's resume the meeting, everyone. Your voice cut through the air like a blade, sharper than necessary. You shot a glare at Jungkook, who was now looking at you with wide eyes, clearly startled by the change in your behavior. You turned away quickly, moving to your seat without sparing him another glance. He couldn't quite read the expression on your face, but there was something different. Was it anger? Disappointment? He didn't know. He sighed, running a hand through his hair as he sat beside you again. But this time, the usual comfort between you was gone. Emily, satisfied with whatever she had gained from the interaction, She stood up to speak next, but her eyes kept darting toward Jungkook, clearly pleased with herself. You sat there, your mind racing, your heart still simmering with jealousy, and a part of you angry at yourself for caring so much. Why did it matter if Emily was flirting with him? It wasn't like you two had anything official, but deep down, you knew Jungkook was yours, and no one was going to take him away from you. Suddenly the lights dimmed, and the presentation began. You sat there, your hands clenched tightly in your lap as you focused on Jungkook, but as your thoughts shifted, a mischievous idea sparked in your mind. The fluttering sensation in your chest was both thrilling and dangerous. You could feel the rush of excitement as you shifted in your seat, your eyes quickly darting to Jungkook's legs beneath the table. His legs were spread wide, his posture casual, but it was just enough to catch your attention. Your heart fluttered with a daring idea. A smirk tugged at your lips, and you felt a blush creep up your cheeks. Slowly, carefully, your hand moved toward him, and you rested your palm casually on his lap. You kept your other hand flat on the table, pretending to focus on the presentation in front of you. His eyes flickered to your hand, and then to you, trying to play it off like it didn't matter, but he tried to read your intentions. Jungkook, what's wrong, Yin? His voice was shaky, barely above a whisper, but you could hear the panic. You shrugged casually, your eyes narrowing. You tilted your head just slightly, glancing up at him before your gaze drifted to the front of the room, signaling with your eyes that he should pay attention to the ongoing meeting. The casual motion made him swallow hard. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered, and Emily's voice interrupted the moment. Emily, the presentation is over. Jungkook felt like he'd been snapped back into reality. Emily's eyes darted toward Jungkook as the room brightened, finally revealing his face in full clarity. Her breath hitched, his skin glistened with a thin layer of sweat, his cheeks flushed a deep red, and his jaw clenched as if he was holding something back. Emily's curiosity morphed into something darker when her gaze fell down. His hand was resting, almost gripping tightly on your thigh. She froze, her eyes widening in shock and jealousy. Determined not to let her emotions show, Emily straightened her posture and walked over to him, her heels clicking against the tiled floor. But each step felt heavier as her jealousy grew. Emily, I hope you like the presentation, Mr. Jeon, she stammered, her voice laced with nervous energy. Jungkook didn't bother to look at her. His gaze remained fixed on the documents in front of him, his hand moving efficiently to gather them. His tone was curt, barely masking his irritation. Jungkook, it was fine. Let's collaborate, but next time, bring your father. I'd prefer to discuss the details with him directly. Emily blinked, her heart sinking at his words. Her father was the real CEO who had sent her to his place due to an emergency. Swallowing her pride, she nodded, forcing a tight smile. Emily, understood, Mr. Jeon. Jungkook's intense gaze suddenly shifted to you. His eyes darkened, his tone dropping to a commanding whisper meant only for you. Jungkook, follow me. The command sent a shiver down your spine. His tone left no room for argument, and you nodded subtly, your throat dry. As he turned to leave, Emily, desperate to salvage her dignity, extended her hand toward him. Emily, Mr. Jeon, I just wanted to say. But Jungkook didn't even glance her way. He walked past her as if she weren't there, leaving her hand lingering awkwardly in the air. The humiliation was evident on her face, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She quickly withdrew her hand, clenching it into a fist at her side. You couldn't help but smirk at her downfall as you followed Jungkook out of the room, but the smugness quickly faded as your heartbeat picked up. The tension between you and Jungkook was thick, and you knew whatever awaited you in his office would push boundaries. Reaching his cabin, you hesitated briefly before gripping the door handle. Taking a deep breath, you pushed it open and stepped inside. Jungkook was already seated behind his desk. You shut the door behind you, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. Slowly, you walked toward his desk, your heart hammering in your chest. His gaze never wavered, following your every move with a predatory intensity. When you reached him, he extended a hand toward you, palm up. Without hesitation, you placed your hand in his, and he pulled you forward with a firm tug. You stumbled slightly. Jungkook, you thought you could play with me and just walk away? Your breath hitched, but you quickly regained your composure. Raising a brow, you leaned in slightly, your lips curling into a smirk. Yin, and you think you can flirt with anyone and I'll just watch. His lips twitched, but it wasn't a smile. His jaw clenched as his dark eyes locked onto yours. Jungkook, you don't even know what we were talking about. Yin, your smile said enough. Looked like you were enjoying yourself. You shot back, your voice laced with accusation. Jungkook let out a slow, deep breath, his eyes narrowing slightly. Jungkook, can't you tell the difference between a real smile and a fake one? Before you could respond, he closed the distance between you, capturing your lips in a searing kiss. It was urgent, almost as if he needed to claim you. His hand slid up. The door opened, and Miss Emily stepped in, her heels clicking against the floor as she approached. Miss Emily, Mr. Jian, are you okay? Jungkook's breathing was uneven, but he kept his composure, his voice steady though strained. Jungkook, what is it? Emily hesitated, noting his flushed face and the slight sheen of sweat on his brow. She clutched her clipboard nervously. Ms. Emily, I was wondering, are you free this evening? His jaw tightened, and his fingers curled against the desk. His voice dropped an octave, laced with impatience. Jungkook, no, you may leave. Emily's eyes widened slightly at his abrupt response, but she pressed on, her tone more insistent. Ms. Emily, then when are you free? Let's have dinner together sometime. Jungkook's eyes darkened, his frustration boiling over as he bit out his next words, desperate for her to leave. Jungkook, I don't have time for that, and even if I did, my girlfriend wouldn't let me have dinner with another woman. The mention of a girlfriend made Emily's face pale, her smile faltered, and you smile under. You could almost hear the crack in her confidence. She forced herself to stay composed, her pride barely intact. Miss Emily, I see. My apologies, Mr. Jian. She turned on her heel and left, the door clicking shut behind her. The second she was gone, the tension in Jungkook's body snapped. Without thinking, he scooped you into his arms and sat you on his lap. His hands cupped your cheeks with tenderness. His thumbs traced soft circles on your skin as he leaned in, his lips capturing yours in a deep, hungry kiss. The sound of your lips moving together filled the quiet room, and Jungkook, the sensation making his hands, warm and slightly trembling, slid from your cheeks to your jaw, then down to your neck, where he held you gently. He pulled back slightly, leaned in again, placing open-mouthed kisses on both of your cheeks. Each kiss was deliberate, as if he were trying to erase any pain from the session. He kissed your chin, then trailed his lips back up to your mouth, capturing it in another deep, passionate kiss. He pulled away slightly, his forehead resting against yours. His voice was soft, but the weight of his words made your heart skip a beat. Jungkook, I love you, Yin. I want to satisfy you too. I want to make you feel everything. I feel. A soft smile spread across your face, your heart swelling with affection. You brushed your nose against his, your breath mingling. Yin, say that again, you whispered, your voice barely audible. Jungkook's eyes widened slightly as he realized what he had just confessed. He blinked, his lips parting as if to say something, but instead, he simply stared at you. But then, he felt your hands on his shoulders, grounding him. A calm washed over him, and he decided he didn't care anymore. He loved you, and he needed you to know. His arms tightened around your waist as he pulled you closer, his voice steady and filled with love. Jungkook, I love you. I've loved you for a long time now, baby. Everything we're doing, it's overwhelming, but it's real. I even told my mother about you. Your smile widened at his words, but you chose not to reveal that you already knew. You didn't want to interrupt his moment, to steal the sincerity of his confession. Jungkook's brows furrowed slightly, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. Jungkook, I know it might seem like I'm only saying this now because of what just happened, but it's not like that. You placed a gentle finger on his lips, silencing him. Yin, it's okay, you said softly, your eyes meeting his with unwavering trust. I trust you. And I love you too. His breath hitched, his eyes searching yours for any sign of hesitation. Jungkook, you do? He asked, his voice laced with excitement and hope. You nodded, a warm smile spreading across your face as you leaned in to hug him tightly, his arms wrapped around you. holding you close as if he never wanted to let go. You could feel his heart pounding against your chest. After a moment, he pulled back just enough to look at you, his expression soft but serious. "Jungkook, I need you to know something," he said quietly. "When I smiled earlier, it wasn't because I was enjoying her attention. She was just telling me how her father praised my work and apologized for not being able to attend the meeting. I didn't know how else to respond, so I smiled, that's all." Your heart melted at his sincerity, at how deeply he wanted to reassure you. Leaning in, you placed soft, playful kisses on his cheeks, trailing down to his jawline. Each kiss was gentle, filled with affection. Jungkook closed his eyes, a soft chuckle escaping his lips as he leaned into your touch. "Yin, so, you teased, your lips brushing against his ear. I'm your girlfriend now, huh? That's what you told Emily." Jungkook's cheeks flushed a deep red, his ears burning as he nodded shyly. "Jungkook, aren't you now?" he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. You laughed softly, nodding in agreement. But before you could tease him further, his expression shifted again, his gaze darkening. His hands gripped your waist firmly, pulling you even closer. "Jungkook, I want to satisfy you too, baby," he said, his voice low and husky. Completely. Your breath hitched, your heart pounding as you felt the intensity of his words. You placed your hands on his chest, leaning in until your lips were just a breath away from his. "Yin, you can," you whispered. "I'm all yours, Jungkook. Jungkook, you don't know how much that means to me," he murmured, his hands gently tracing patterns on your back. And with that, the room was filled with soft words and gentle touches. Every moment between you felt warm and meaningful. You both gave in to the feelings you had been holding back, letting your love speak louder than words.